Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to yet another Cutter Top 10 sports video. And today we're taking a look at the world of professional wrestling as the top 10 professional wrestlers of all time. Now, I know a lot of people hate wrestling because it's fixed and all that, but injuries are real. You don't script, Owen Hart pile driving Stone Cold Steve Austin at SummerSlam 1997 and causing Stone Cold to break his neck. That's not scripted. Owen Hart's death was not scripted, obviously. So how can you say that? There are dangers in professional wrestling and all that, men and women. Nevertheless, these 10 wrestlers have put together a great resume and all that. A lot of you will go back to your childhoods to think about it or your current wrestling things. But anyway, um, the list was very big. In fact, some great wrestlers did not even make the top 10. First of all, this is Sting, the face of WCW, and practically he was the greatest WCW wrestler to never go into the WWE ring until 2014 when he ruined Triple H's chances to fuck over like Cena and all them. Anyway, so Sting was a respected WWE performer, and of course his famous match with Triple H at WrestleMania 31 in 2015 in San Francisco, in which basically the NWO came to try to destroy Triple H, and the Generation X tried to destroy Sting. Eddie Guerrero, I lie, I cheat, I steal. He was also an honorable mention. His charisma, technical skill, and underdog story inspired a lot of people before his untimely passing. I mean, the guy was a good wrestler in WCW, misused because, WCW was thinking about the big name talent and all that. Eddie was good, but drugs ruined him, and he lost almost everything. He went to rehab, he cleaned himself up, WWE gave him another chance, and he made the most of it, especially winning the WWE title in 2004 against Brock Lesnar. And of course, his untimely death in November 2005 was just dismal. And then you got, oh yeah, Slim and a Slim Jim. I don't have the deep voice to pull it off, but yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage. Great guy, flamboyant style and legendary matches. He was beloved, and yeah, especially his robes and all that. Like, he barely wore the same robe twice in his in-ring stuff with WWE and all that. Winning the WWE tournament title tournament at WrestleMania 4 in 1988, excuse me, was pretty big for him. And he was pretty good. And when he died in 2012, people were just upset. And then of course, love him or hate him, call him a douchebag and all that. But it's got to be Triple H, a key player in both the ring and behind the scenes. He had championship reigns, influential storylines, and of course, basically sucking up to the boss's daughter because, he married Stephanie McMahon, who was Vince McMahon's daughter. And anyway, I can't stand that bitch. And Triple H, too. I know you could say Stephanie McMahon is just being a character, but you don't go on Twitter, on your Twitter bio, when she was in her prime as being part of the authority and call yourself a bitch and all that. People will take you at your word. Nevertheless, Triple H, a lot of people hated him because he was with Stephanie McMahon and could get his own way. He's backstage politicking, kind of like a few wrestlers on the top 10. But yeah, Triple H was okay and all that. He has brought WWE back to respectability. As long as Vince McMahon, that cunt, doesn't ruin it. Anyway, let's go to the top 10. Number 10 is Bruno Sammartino, the first great WWE superstar when it was the WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Bruno Sammartino was a hero to generations. I mean, the guy held the title for 8 years in his first run. From 1963 to 1971, he was a champ. He sold out Madison Square Garden more times than anyone else in history. And this is like, the record still stands to this day, like 5 decades later. But Bruno was just Bruno and all that. He was a working class guy coming from Italia, and he made wrestling big, especially with the Italian American population of New York City. He even had a 4-year run as champ the second time. and he was just iconic and all that. Why would he not be on this list? Number 9 is also an old-time legend. Andre the Giant. Stood over 7 feet tall, weighed more than 500 pounds at his peak. He had size, strength, and unique presence. Andre was a worldwide wrestler, practically. He would fight in Japan, Canada, France. He was an icon and all that around the world. He faced people like Hulk Hogan and Big John Studd and was the first ever member of the WWE Hall of Fame. And of course, Andre the Giant was a good guy and all that. And for many years, he lose matches by disqualification or countout. But the fact is that Andre the Giant was not legitimately beaten for 14 years. And Andre the Giant said that he didn't want to be WWE champion. He just wanted to be the Giant. But that changed when he turned heel in 1987, shocking a lot of people in alliance with Bobby Heenan. And then Andre would face Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 3. Andre's health, unfortunately, was not good, as he had to have that big back brace, and basically, his condition worsened and all that. Somehow Hulk managed to slam Andre the Giant. I know that. But yeah, Andre the Giant was big. Yeah, he did win the WWE title in 1988, but then he surrendered it to Ted DiBiase, part of his storyline in which DiBiase kind of bought the title. Andre only had it for a few minutes. And of course, winning it was controversial because Hulk Hogan's shoulder was off the mat at 2 in the first place. And then, of course, twin referee magic and all that stuff. And of course, Andre called it the World Tag Team Championship, which you can't do. Yeah, Andre the Giant was okay, but yeah, and the first WWE Hall of Famer. Well, that was 1993 when he passed away. Anyway, number 8 is this man. Oh, watch out! Do 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 do. My time is up, or time is now. Now you can't see me. My time is now. That's the franchise. You can't see me. My time is now. I'm kind of a John Cena guy because that was the first wrestler that really got to me when I started watching wrestling again. I used to watch wrestling back in in the 90s, but after a while, I just didn't like it. So practically, I was away from WWE. And then when I moved to Kitchener and all that, and caught wrestling and SmackDown and all that, John Cena was the champ, and he got to me. He had the never give up mantra. I know that Cena is an 81. Is he 81 maybe or 78? 78 guy, but yeah. Anyway, with 16 world championships, of course, it's number 17. He got number 17 against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Controversial or not, he did. He had his work ethic, charity involvement, especially with Make-A-Wish, granting the most wishes by an athlete or celebrity ever. His crossover appeal made him beloved children and a polarizing one among hardcore fans. Yeah, the hardcore fans used to like Cena, and then they just grew tired of his babyface antics and all that. But nevertheless, I liked Cena I always liked John Cena. I didn't hate on the guy until he turned heel in Toronto, although it was kind of The Rock's fault. But the problem was that, Cena faced Rhodes. Where was Rock in this? He was not in the final product at this year's WrestleMania and all that. It was like a waste of time. And of course, people said that it was because of the fact that Money in the Bank in Toronto, no, sorry, Elimination Chamber Toronto was not selling that well, so they needed some gimmick. But anyway, yeah, he transitioned into Hollywood in a rap album, and he was basically good. Unfortunately, Cena gets a lot of flack because he's basically Vince McMahon's puppet, if you will. But John Cena was good. I mean, Cena did beat up on Vince McMahon a couple times, and Vince McMahon is a piece of shit. Just saying. But yeah, anyway, John Cena doing his job and all that. Okay, number 7 is Bret. Do 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 do. Yeah, Bret Hart, the excellence of execution, a 5-time WWE champion. He had technical mastery because he was raised to be a good wrestler in the dungeon, which his father Stu Hart set up to train his wrestlers and all that. Stu Hart was a promoter and all that with Stampede Wrestling. He had realism and athleticism. Bret was basically a tag team guy from in the late 80s, early 90s. But then once he became a singles wrestler, he took off in the stratosphere. His famous match at SummerSlam 91 against Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Belt basically brought him to the forefront. It wasn't long before Bret would do much better. In 92, well, he did win the Intercontinental Belt from Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 8, excuse me. But in 92, in a house show in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, October 1992, somehow in some way, Bret Hart beat Ric Flair for the WWE belt. And everyone thought that Bret was legitimate. Unfortunately, he lost it to Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9 in a bullshit way of ending it. He would have massive rivalries with HBK, of course, the Montreal Screwjob comes to mind. Owen Hart, his own brother, who threatened to kick Bret Hart's leg out of his leg. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, in 1997. All that etched in history. Bret, of course, was left the WWE after the Montreal Screwjob. He was going to WCW for all that money and all that. I mean, Vince McMahon could have easily let Bret keep his title against Shawn Michaels, and then Bret would have dropped it. Simple as that. Or just basically Bret losing to Shawn Michaels legitimately. But no, he had to fuck Bret Hart over. Bret had nothing to do with the WWE except for a documentary in 2005, like for 13 years. And then he finally got brought back to the WWE and then had a fight with Vince McMahon, which was kind of weak. But Bret beating up on Vince McMahon? Fuck that guy, as in Vince McMahon. All right, number 6 is The Rock says, know your role and shut your mouth. You smell what The Rock is cooking? That's right, it's The Rock. And all that. He burst onto the wrestling scene with charisma and a gift for promos. After all, Dwayne The Rock Johnson became the first third-generation superstar in WWE history. His grandfather was High Chief Peter Maivia, and his father was Rocky Johnson. So the Soul Man, a couple-time WWE Tag Belt champion with Tony Atlas. And from Nova Scotia. That's right, Rock's father is Canadian. So he's part Canadian, bitch. The fact of the matter is that, he could connect with audiences, both as a villain and as a hero. He was a hero, but people hated him when he was the Rocky Maivia guy. And they even would chant, die, Rocky, die. But Rock finally decided to embrace his villain side, and he became a hero. He had superstardom. His rivalry with Stone Cold was amazing. He had great mic work and all that. And his presence in the late 90s, early 2000s was big before he went to Hollywood. And people thought he was never going to come back to WWE. But he came back a few times and, had the rivalry with Cena in the 2010s and all that. His impact in WWE remains legendary. And after all, he is part of the TKO brand that owns WWE and UFC. But yeah, The Rock is there too. He had a great idealistic and all that. Number 5. Ooh, Sean! I think I'm cute. I think I'm sexy. I got the moves that make top out. Oh, I'm a sexy boy. Sexy boy! I'm not your boy toy. Actually, HBK is my Aunt Mick's favorite wrestler and all that. So yeah, HBK is often hailed as the most gifted in-ring performer of all time. He had a 25-year career and had some show-stealing performances and had some of the greatest matches ever, including matches with The Undertaker, Bret Hart, and even Kurt Angle, which actually stole the show at WrestleMania 21 in lieu of Cena beating JBL for the WWE belt, Batista winning the heavyweight belt, and that sumo match between Akebono and Big Show. Nevertheless, HBK was just this decent guy, and then he was in a tag team with Marty Jannetty and the Rockers, and once they broke up with Shawn throwing Marty Jannetty through the plate glass window to become a singles guy, you knew HBK's career was going to go off into the stratosphere, and it did. He did pretty well for himself. Unfortunately, HBK was known for his politicking and being in bad crowds with the Clique, with Kevin Nash, Razor Ramon, and Triple H. But HBK did win the title in 1996, which was amazing and all that, and won the Royal Rumble in 95, even though that he was thrown over the top rope. But the rules were both feet had to touch the ground, and then Shawn cleverly made sure that his second foot did not touch the ground. So yeah, HBK was amazing and all that. And unfortunately, his career kind of faltered in '98 after losing the title in WrestleMania 14 to Stone Cold, but it was on purpose because legitimately he suffered a massive bump in his casket match against The Undertaker at Royal Rumble '98 for the belt. And that ruined him. Everyone thought HBK would never come back as a wrestler. He was a WWE commissioner for a while. But then HBK came back in 2002, stronger than ever, beat Triple H in a street fight. And it was just amazing. And HBK changed his lifestyle. He became a born again Christian. He was doing the things and all that. Four-time world champion, two-time Hall of Famer. Well, once as himself and once as part of the Generation X. He had technical excellence, high-flying athleticism, and emotional storytelling. After 2002, he won the title in the first ever Elimination Chamber match was at Survivor Series 2002 in New York, and HBK was champ. He beat Triple H for that belt. It was funny seeing Shawn Michaels and Shawn Hare winning the title. And then, one of the magic moments that didn't have to do with the title, May 2005, facing off against Shelton Benjamin, I think to become in one of the qualifying matches to be number one contender to Batista's belt. They had a great fight in which HBK throws Shelton Benjamin over the top rope, but Shelton catches it and then he tries to springboard back. But Shawn realizes it and then throws the massive super kick. The super kick heard around the world in 2005 to Shelton Benjamin. It was like one of the greatest moments of all time. It was like, wow. How about that? Anyway, number 4 is dun, 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 yes, man, the Dead Man, The Undertaker. He had one of the greatest WWE debuts of all time. Well, you can say Chris Jericho, with the Y2J clock in 1999 on Raw, getting a feud with The Rock right off the bat. But yeah, Undertaker was huge. They had this whole egg, WWE egg, which will be hatched at 90s Survivor Series, and everyone thought Undertaker would be the one out of the egg, but no, it was the gobbledygooker. But before that, Ted DiBiase, as part of his Survivor Series team, decided to announce, led by Brother Love, who was the Undertaker's manager at the time. Brother Love brought out the Undertaker, and Gorilla Monsoon and Roddy Piper on commentary were shocked. Piper even remarked, "Look at the size of those ham hocks!" And it was like amazing and all that. Undertaker took out, I think it was Coco Beware with what they called the Tombstone Piledriver. And, he had a great debut. He would fight Jake the Snake Roberts at WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 7? No, sorry. Jimmy Superfly Snuka was his first WrestleMania one at WrestleMania 7. Of course, Snuka is like persona non grata for obvious fucking reasons. But nevertheless, Undertaker was synonymous with WrestleMania because he had a 21 match winning streak at the event. He didn't compete every year. Like in '94, he had to have surgery on legit injuries and didn't take part in WrestleMania. But yeah, The Undertaker was just amazing at WrestleMania. You knew he would win every bout. But I mean, look at the matches he had at WrestleMania. Against Psycho Sid for the belt at WrestleMania 13. Against Edge for a title. I think he fought Batista at WrestleMania for a title. Or was it Edge? Well, it was Batista and Edge. He had a couple legendary matches with Shawn Michaels in 2009 and 2010 that stole WrestleMania. He had the match with Triple H in 2012 called the last hurrah of the Attitude Era. Yeah, and of course he lost to Brock Lesnar in 2014, and everyone was just shocked. But Undertaker was concussed in reality. Anyway, yeah, he had the commitment to the character, his agility and all that, and ability to reinvent himself over 3 decades. He was a very dark Undertaker, like thing. And then when he had the surgery, he came back with the new theme music, and he was better than ever. He had a mask on at one time. He would fight Kane. He would have fights with Mankind. He would have lots of fights, and then he turned himself into a biker in 2000, and then went back to his Deadman gimmick by 2004, and it was amazing. Number 3 is Stone Cold 316 says, I just whooped your ass. That's that guy. Stone Cold Steve Austin spearheaded the Attitude Era in the late 90s. He has rebellious, beer-swilling, anti-hero persona, resonated with fans worldwide. Of course, he didn't have that swagger. He was basically Ted DiBiase's minion in WWE as the ringmaster, but then after winning King of the Ring 96 against Jake the Snake Roberts, he did his promo, and it was huge and all that. Austin 316 was part of pop culture. He sold a lot of t-shirts, and he helped usher in record ratings and revenue for WWE. Of course, after Bret Hart was out the door thanks to the Montreal Screwjob, Austin became the anti-hero persona and would beat up on Vince McMahon, stunning him. He actually stunned Vince McMahon's, what was it, September 1997? At Madison Square Garden. That was the first, and, definitely not the last. He would fight with The Rock. He would have his feuds with Vince McMahon and kind of cost Bret Hart a few things. But those two did have a great match at WrestleMania 13 in 97, in which Stone Cold was the heel and Bret Hart was the hero. But after Stone Cold's performance passing out from blood, because, Bret Hart had him in the sharpshooter, Stone Cold became the hero and Bret Hart became the hated guy. But yeah, Stone Cold had a great career. Unfortunately, though, the neck problems, especially after Owen Hart's tombstone on pile driver on him in '97 at SummerSlam, just ruined his career and all that. What might have been if he was healthy and all that. But yeah, Stone Cold would always get on Vince McMahon's nerves and beat up the tar out of Vince McMahon. Good for him. All right. Number 2 is when it comes crashing down and it hurts inside. You gotta take a chance at a time. If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a friend. Can't let it slide. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. Yeah, Hulk Hogan. The recently deceased Hulk Hogan, who died a month ago. Without him, professional wrestling probably would not have exploded into the mainstream in the 1980s. He was the man that was brought in. Hulk did fight in the WWF in late 79, early 80, but once he decided to go do Thunder Lips, like for Rocky 3, Vince J. McMahon, the older Vince McMahon, fired him. He went to AWA, he was okay and all that, and then Vincent K. McMahon, the current Vince McMahon, basically brought Hulk Hogan back because he saw something in Hulk. And he did. Hulk beat the Iron Sheik for the belt in 1984 and didn't lose it for 4 years. He has handlebar, mustache, bandana, and Hulk energy, and of course, the commandments to train hard, say your prayers, and take your vitamins. He was the face of the World Wrestling Federation. WrestleMania 1, his tag match with Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff brought everything into the mainstream. Thanks to that, WrestleMania 1 was a success, and Vince McMahon could still keep his coffers going. Anyway, he would battle with Andre the Giant, Macho Man, and the Ultimate Warrior, had some of the greatest Ash wrestlers of all time. His WrestleMania matches were big. WrestleMania 2, not so much, but WrestleMania 3 against Andre the Giant with the body slam was amazing. And no, that was not the first time Hulk slammed Andre the Giant. He did that at Shea Stadium in 1980 in a major card. WrestleMania 4, helping Macho Man beat Ted DiBiase for the belt. WrestleMania 5, the Mega Powers exploding as he got rid of Macho Man. WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, losing clean to the Ultimate Warrior at the Skydome, one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time. And then WrestleMania 7, his so-so match with Sergeant Slaughter. WrestleMania 8, his seemingly retirement match against Sid Justice that turned into a farce. WrestleMania 9, backstage politicking himself to the WWE belt over Yokozuna. And then, he left for WCW, which was shocking. He had he had something to prove against Ric Flair because Ric Flair was kind of big. And we were supposed to see Hogan Flair at WrestleMania 8, but they got cold feet over it. You know, he had charisma, crossover appeal, and helped both WWF and WCW into big deals. He came back to the WWE in 2002, fought The Rock at WrestleMania 18, and the fans turned on The Rock. The Rock was supposed to be the good guy. Hogan in his NWO gear was supposed to be the bad guy. But the fans turned on The Rock and turned towards Hogan. And then, you know, Hogan having that massive standing ovation from the Montreal crowd on both Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania 18 was just pure amazing. He did win the WWE belt. He probably shouldn't have at his age, but yeah, he did. But yeah, Hulk Hogan was amazing and all that. Hogan knows best. Blah. No way. It just showed Hulk Hogan as a very overprotective father, which I don't think a lot of people wanted to see. Anyway, yeah, Hulk Hogan's great. But number one is woo, Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. Known for his flamboyant robes, charismatic interviews, and the woo coverage. He was a 16-time world champ across multiple organizations. What is crazy about Ric Flair is that his wrestling career could have ended before it started. In 1975, he was in a plane crash and was told he would not wrestle after his injuries, but he came back in a year and a half and proved everyone wrong. But yeah, Ric Flair was just amazing and all that. He was the NWA's golden boy before they turned into WCW, and Jim Herd was hired to head up WCW and basically make Ric Flair look like a tool. What would Jim Herd know? All he did was become the Pizza Hut corporate guy. Douglas Ric Flair decided to win the WCW belt, the World Heavyweight belt, as we know it, and then take it to WWF alongside Bobby Brain Heenan and become the true world champion. Flair cost Hulk Hogan the belt against The Undertaker at Survivor Series 91. Hogan won it back on an impromptu Tuesday pay-per-view in Texas. But then it was vacated, and then Ric Flair put it number 3 in the 92 Royal Rumble, which was supposed to be the greatest Royal Rumble because, you know, everyone was going for the belt, like 2016. But yeah, Ric Flair was number 3, and Bobby Brain Heenan on commentary would always say, it's not fair to Flair and all that. But Flair lasted through everything. Thanks to Hulk Hogan getting pissed off that Sid Justice threw him cleanly over the rope, Hulk decided to help Flair get rid of Sid Justice. Ric Flair wins the belt. And then he says, with a tear in my eye, this is one of the greatest moments of all time. But the quote I like the most from that interview alongside Mr. Perfect and Bobby the Brain Heenan is the line. I think Mr. Perfect says it. We're not the type of people who said we told you so, but we told you so. That's the one quote I like from that one. But yeah, Ric Flair was just amazing and all that. Too bad that things didn't work out in the WWE, and then he went back to WCW by 1993. But yeah, he was okay in WCW. He won the belt a few times, but he would have some issues with creative, especially Vince Russo and all that. He came back to the WWE. He was made to be a partner of Vince McMahon of WWE after Survivor Series 2001 and all that. But yeah, he came back in the ring and all that. He had some great matches and all that. He once had the Intercontinental belt. Did you know that? Bet you did know that. But yeah, he was just amazing and all that. Ric Flair was the mentor in the whole evolution thing with Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista. But the fact of the matter is that Ric Flair is an icon and all that. Like it or not, like his personality or not, just like Hulk Hogan, I think it's just the don't hate the player, don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate the game, hate the player, as in the guy who actually was behind the mask. Like Ric Flair, the real Ric Flair, and the real Hulk Hogan. Like, their characters were good, but personally, those guys were douchebags. And it was just, like, amazing to hear. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, they're good wrestlers and all that, and fun to be around. So, what's to hate? A lot, apparently. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.